Foreign institutional investors, the massive global funds that usually anchor emerging markets, are dumping Indian equities at a staggering rate. The trigger for this capital flight is happening directly in the currency markets. The Indian rupee has collapsed to an all-time low of 96 against the US dollar, causing severe macroeconomic stress across the entire financial system. But precisely as the currency hit that floor, the government executed a highly calculated multi-billion-dollar intervention. This was a $5 billion multi-layered energy, investment, and defense pact signed directly with the United Arab Emirates. To accurately predict whether your domestic stock portfolio will survive 2026, you have to understand exactly how a Middle Eastern defense agreement serves as a mechanical floor for a crashing local currency. Look at the escalating crisis in West Asia. Regional instability presents a direct threat to global shipping routes and the heavy tankers that keep our global energy grids completely online. The diplomatic negotiations in Abu Dhabi successfully locked in a secure, uninterrupted supply of liquefied petroleum gas and heavily expanded India's strategic petroleum reserves. This map shows the exact mechanics of the CEPA agreement. This newly secured trade corridor deliberately bypasses volatile conflict zones near the Strait of Hormuz. By charting this path, the agreement builds a protected ocean pipeline, guaranteeing energy resources safely reach India's west coast. By securing these supply lines, the agreement physically blocks imported inflation, which ultimately dictates the baseline costs for every manufacturer and energy grid inside India. This diagram illustrates the currency squeeze. When a country buys expensive Middle Eastern oil using US dollars, the sheer weight of that outward capital flow mechanically pushes the rupee down to 96. The financial leverage of the UAE agreement lies in transitioning these massive trade settlements entirely into local currency. This removes the US dollar from the equation and immediately stabilizes the exchange rate. Yet raw data shows Western funds are still caught in a mass liquidation of Indian equities, driven by fears of dollar dominance and market volatility. To absorb that specific shock, the government structured $5 billion in direct Middle Eastern investments to serve as a deliberate domestic counterweight to the exiting Western money. The Indian stock market is currently trapped in a violent tug-of-war between fearful Western capital fleeing the country and strategic incoming liquidity from the Gulf. When the rupee falls to 96, the cost to import electronic components skyrockets, which immediately compresses the profit margins for domestic manufacturers like Dixon Technologies. However, these newly established UAE tech partnerships and local currency supply routes offer a critical backdoor, allowing companies like Dixon to source materials without taking the massive dollar conversion hit. Moving to the automotive sector, TataMotors' latest fourth-quarter passenger vehicle results show direct signs of pressure. Their production costs are deeply exposed to the same fluctuating global energy prices and macroeconomic stress. Down at the retail level, everyday consumers react to a weakening currency by seeking absolute safety against inflation. They liquidate riskier assets and leverage physical gold. This exact consumer behavior drives a massive spike in gold loan demand, padding Muthoot Finance's lending numbers. A single company's quarterly earnings report no longer exists in a vacuum. It is a direct, mathematical reflection of how effectively that business navigates the turbulent nexus of the rupee and global geopolitics. The domestic consumption story that drove the Indian bull run is now tightly coupled to the geopolitical stability of West Asia. Relying entirely on historical balance sheets to pick stocks is a dangerous game when a sudden overnight currency shock can wipe out a company's operational margins. To protect a retail portfolio today, you have to trace the macro-level geopolitical events all the way down to the micro-level corporate supply chains. Ultimately, the growth of your investments relies just as much on the safe passage of physical cargo ships through the Strait of Hormuz as it does on the decisions made by CEOs in Mumbai.